Hey, what's up, everybody? Good evening, and welcome to another episode of What You Can't See, our infrequent podcast covering episodes of Dark Matter. Tonight, here with me, as always, I have my co host, Mr. David Pecci.
How's it going, everybody?
And tonight, we're going to be covering episodes 6 through 8. Um, so it's a lot of ground to cover, and quite a few things have changed for the cast across those 6 episodes. So first of all, let's start with number 6, which was a pretty big episode because we get to see the reveal and the backstory behind Nyx, which was pretty exciting. And I may get some of this wrong because the episode was 3 weeks ago. I did write a review for it on Ungeeks Worldwide if people want to check that out. And by the way, as always, this is a spoiler-based show, so we're recording with the assumption that you are caught up and have watched everything up through episode 8. Um, so, uh, so two at the beginning of this episode proposes that they need to make a score in order to get some cash, and Nyx proposes that they go after a freighter whose location she knows. Turns out, once they get to the freighter, um, the crew fans out to find the valuable cargo, which in this case is a drug, which some of the crew is not entirely on board with. Um, but uh, but they go for it anyway. And once they're on board, it's revealed that Nyx has an ulterior motive, and she is actually there to rescue her brother. Um, and so they pull that off, and it turns out as well that they are members of a race of precogs. Um, and that they kind of exist as a hive mind. Um, so basically, they I think they were originally kidnapped from their planet and were enslaved to utilize their abilities for the benefits of others. They eventually overthrew that crew, but then their leader, the guy who installed himself in place as their leader, kind of did the same thing in an effort to increase their abilities and allow them to have more influence over the events in the galaxy. Um, so Dave, in general, what were your feelings on this episode?
I thought episode 6 was really good. I kind of had a hunch that Nyx was telepathic of some sort. Um, and I overall liked it as an episode. Um, and I and that's all I really remember. I don't think there was anything more eventful than Nyx's backstory. Um, So I liked 6 and I liked episode 7, but I was very let down by episode 8. But I'll get to that later. Oh, Sickleys, I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. So
Okay.
that discussion on episode 8 should be very interesting. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing in this episode is that you get to see Nyx's backstory. Um, but another thing that went on is that I said Nyx, right, not 6.
Yeah, you said Nyx.
That we get to see Nyx's backstory and see her relationship. The interesting twist is that Nyx kind of goes out of her way to ask for to get to know her brother, and in the end, it's Four who suggests a way out because they eventually get cornered by the race of precogs, and two kind of goes through a bit of soul searching because she feels that she wonders if her status as a somewhat synthetic engineered being and not a full human um, uh, depletes her of the capability of being unpredictable. Because they're called precogs, but the reality is that they are running a bunch of very high level computations and probability to to ascertain the most likely outcome of future events. And so two goes through a bit of doubting herself, but the other main thing that happens is 3 and 6 kind of patch up their differences. So 3 has been hell bent on not trusting him and not forgiving 6 at all for him turning them over to the Galactic Authority. But at the end of this episode, he says to 6 that he's willing, that he still doesn't trust him, but he's willing to give him a chance. Um, but then the other twist, as I mentioned, is that is that when the crew is cornered, they elect to just go ahead and turn the brother back over to the race of precogs. Um,
Yeah,
and
that was kind of the thing that made me wonder in that episode, is because Nix doesn't know that they had this plan where the brother goes back and commits suicide.
Well, in my review, I questioned. I said that's kind of the unanswered question, right? Is did she not know, or because she's a precog herself, was it her set of
That's true.
probabilities? Yeah, that led to her suspecting that 4 would suggest to him that he commit suicide. And the extra bit of detail in that is, that her brother is like the most skilled, the most powerful, the most capable of running those computations and figuring out what's gonna occur next. So that was pretty much episode 6 in a can. Episode 7, and yeah, I was up on episode 6 as well. I kind of wasn't as crazy about episode 5, but episode 6 was an uptick for me, and I scored it an 8 out of 10. Um, so the next episode, she's one of them now. Uh, Again, uh, to me, it wasn't as strong as episode 6. So the synopsis in this one is they decide to go after Alicia Renault, who is the mob boss basically that is trying to hunt down 5 and find the special interface card that allows FTL drives to actually access pockets of space time.
Yeah, that was a really good episode. That was probably, out of the 3, that was probably the best one.
Right. Yeah. So here we get Talbot Kalchek, Sir David Hewitt from Stargate, and again the creators of the show were on the creative crew of Stargate. So they go and pick him up so that he will tell them the location of Renault's secret hideout, after the last score in episode 6, they apparently have a huge ton of cash. They procure their own I forget what it's called, something transport, but the thing that creates clones and on the other end of and transports your consciousness, or copies your consciousness to the clone, so that it's fine for them to be killed, but if they're killed outside of the transport, then you don't remember anything. But if they can get back to the transport, they beam the memories, short-term memories from the clone back to you. So they procure 3 of these transport tubes themselves, transport 3, 4, and 5 into the hideout, by hacking into Renault's transport system and finding, they call it something else, but it's basically the IP address of our transport. And they transport the 3 of them, and they perform a heist, and they find not only the secrets of the card, but they also find this thing that they refer to as an adapter, which basically slots into a card slot in an FTL drive, and enables this thing. It turns it into what they call a blink drive, which allows them to basically instantaneously transport across unlimited distances.
Yeah, of course, for me, the highlight of 7, let's see. Now, was it, I'm starting to forget now. So 7 was the episode where they steal the drive, but isn't that also the episode where they practice the drive too, right? And then, yeah.
They practice it at the end, and so
yeah.
The results of them using the drive without really knowing how it works is what unfolds in episode 8.
Right. So the thing that was also shocking, though, and that kind of made me pissed off in episode 8, is that we see, I forget what his name is, the doctor,
yeah,
Devin.
yeah,
Yeah, he gets freaking, like, he's got to be dead. Like, that's a lot of blood he lost.
right, right. Yeah, that's.
Um,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
and it's kind of sad because, Nix is waiting in the bar all alone. And of course, like, you knew that was coming, sadly, like there was a consequence of their actions and that was it. They come back and they're trying to hunt down Nix and they probably want their revenge because they took out their one of their main weapons.
Right. Yeah.
And another sense, oh sorry, the other thing too is that this is probably gonna, Nix, if she doesn't already know her brother's dead, she's pretty damn gonna know pretty soon because they're gonna like, well, why are they so pissed at us?
Well, she definitely knows because part of what goes on in this episode is there's this dialogue between she and Devin, and she's mourning the loss of her brother, and so as the episode opens, she goes to him to try and score some drugs. Um, and there's
Well, the loss as in she knows he's dead or that he's not around.
oh no, she knows he's dead. I think they covered that in 6 that she's aware that he killed
Okay,
himself.
because that wasn't clear to me.
Right, right, right.
Okay.
So there's this bit of dialogue where she goes to him and asks him for drugs, and he, in what you would perceive as a hypocritical manner, tells her that drugs aren't the answer, and then she confronts him about his own drug use. He doesn't reveal it right then, but he reveals it like 2 scenes later when he's seen hanging out just on an open deck, drinking Jack. And we do get that, at least that tidbit of a backstory that the scene that
But so, this reminds me of something. I totally thought seeing episode 7, I totally thought they've already killed off Devin. But when you watch episode 8, at the very end of, like, I'm jumping forward, at the end of episode 8, you see that I forget what her name is. I think it's 3, right?
well, three is Boone.
Okay, no, 2 then.
Okay.
Okay, so 2 collapses, and so that makes me think. Well, they're going to have Devin there because they're going to need a doctor, perhaps, to fix up 2 now because something happened to her when they jumped universes.
Well, so she actually got the first shakes before the jump. So at the end of episode either 5 or 6, you see her holding a stainless steel cup, like this one but smaller.
But then again, if you saw the preview for episode 9, they go and find one of her old creators. So maybe they don't need Devin after all to fix her up. Maybe Devin is killed off.
Well, so that's a lot of the dynamic of the question, right? Is first of all, it was shocking to me that they killed him because I felt like I was still waiting to see or hear more of his backstory, even though
it seemed unfair, and I really liked him as a character.
Yeah.
And then we find out that there's this love going on between I think it was 5, right? Is the short girl,
right?
The kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm bad with the numbers.
No,
like,
that's fine. That's fine. I only remember a little bit because I just watched 7 and 8 last night. So
okay.
So yeah, so that's the question, right? I mean, he's killed at the end of episode 7. At the end of episode 8, throughout episode 8 we saw multiple instances that something is going on with 2. I think at the end of episode 5 or 6 we see the first instance of her having the shakes while she's holding a cup of water, and I think you either see the cup of water shaking or she actually drops it. And then in episode 8, there was a fight scene where she's fighting someone that she has fought before and beaten, but she loses that fight, and you get some camera shots that are theoretically from her perspective, and you can see her vision clouding over. You can tell that she's tired, she's not doing as well as this fight, and there's clearly something going on. And then at the end of episode 8, We see her having another episode of the Shakes. Um, and yeah, that's what I was thinking when we saw that scene in episode 8. I was like, man, how are they going to get through this without the Doctor on board? Um, but yeah, again, I mean, it's the same thing as gosh, what is his name? Zephyrin Moss. So one, it's the same thing as one, right? You see him killed off, and you're just like, well, they can't have done that. And there's just still kind of this lingering question as to whether or not somehow that character will come back. And we can just go ahead and skip ahead, and we can come back and talk about some stuff on episode 7, because of course now the big mystery is at the end of episode 8, which is they, in attempting to use the blink drive, they make a jump to a parallel universe, and when they jump back, there is another marauder that is attached to their hull. Um, and in that parallel universe, they run into a copy, a parallel version of the Raza and that crew. Um,
I just thought that was. I just totally thought that was off season. That whole parallel universe thing. I totally think they should have waited to do something like that. Later on.
yeah, it was a little. I didn't feel it was weird, but it was definitely.
Total filler and all
It,
that.
yeah, and to a certain extent, I feel like it's one of those things that you have to do if you're a sci-fi. Like, there's a lot of homage in Dark Matter, right? There's a lot of things that kind of channel and echo past classic sci-fi shows, and I just felt like this episode was like an homage to Star Trek, right? The big parallel universe episode where I think there's a transporter accident, and Kirk and McCoy wind up in a parallel universe where the Federation is evil. You get the great classic Leonard Nimoy as Spock with kind of a Klingon beard. And so it just felt like it was an homage to that. So it didn't bother me as much. It also fit for me in that there wasn't just this tropish occurrence that they obtain the blink drive and it just immediately works perfectly, right? And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, out of nowhere, they have this ability to traverse the entire universe undetected and instantaneously. So having a little bit of adversity to get to that capability, I was okay with it.
Uh, yeah, I don't know. I just thought they should have waited to do. I mean, now if they're gonna do like alternate universes, like now you have to do like time travel at least.
I Go ahead.
Go on. Sorry.
No, I suspect the time travel is right, because if you do an homage to the parallel universe from Star Trek, then one of Star Trek's most horrible tropes is the Enterprise slingshotting around the sun, right, to do time travel. Which I'm like, if you guys can do it that frequently, why do you not just do it all the time? So, so it wouldn't surprise me to see more time travel.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, there were some good takeaways, like whoever it was from the parallel universe that is now in their universe. The other thing is seeing the android in their universe, and that was a pretty good scene. I mean, those I think were the only takeaways that I really liked.
right, right. Now, I really liked the android's portrayal in episode 7, where, and I can't tell if she has the emotion chip. I think she does not have the emotion chip installed right now, but even without the emotion chip,
Yeah, you're right. It's not really clear, but I don't think she does.
right, right, because even without that, there was clarity that there's some type of enhanced subroutine that she already had that allows her to experience human emotion. Um, the chip grants her the ability to experience that across the full spectrum of emotion. Um, but even without it, she responds to things based on emotional inputs, even though she's not aware of it, and shows them very subtly. Uh, so I really like the scene between her and David Hewitt, where he's kind of questioning why someone would do that to her program. Um, and it's clearly a very personal issue for her that she feels like he doesn't have the right to bring up with her. She shows a level of irritation, and just kind of steps in really close to him in a kind of threatening manner. Um, answering his questions, but making it very clear and apparent that this is not a topic for him to discuss, and he eventually backs off on it. So I thought that was a pretty good scene.
Yeah, yeah.
So what do you think about Nyx's evolution across these two episodes? Because we kind of get to see, well, not so much episode 8, but definitely 6 and 7. We get to see more of her character, and her actually surfacing the fact that that she feels isolated and alone on the ship, even though with her abilities, she's pretty much able to go toe to toe with two.
Yeah, no, I like her, and like I said, she's probably my favorite over, Devin. She's really good with the hand-to-hand combat, and we all, the one thing that we learned too in episode 8 is Ishida is going to eventually be going back to his home planet. He's already getting ideas, so we know that's coming. That was kind of foreshadowed. So I definitely see Nyx, taking his place on the Raza crew. I don't think we'll see the end of him. Like, they might ask for favors from him every once in a while. But I think as Nyx goes, I think she's a really good support character to the crew. I think she adds a useful ability. She's kind of a counselor too, which is interesting because beforehand we saw that Six was kind of a counselor. And now it seems Nyx is the one, really that's taken that role over. And I'm really unclear what's going to happen with Six because he's really hasn't been shown a lot. And I honestly don't know if they're going to keep him around because I just don't see his point right now. Oh, and then the other thing is I kind of feel in episode 8 when he finds out in the alternate universe that he's killed, I think that shook something in him, and I think we're going to see, I think he doesn't trust two, and so I think we're going to see that play out.
Yeah, he there's that scene where he comes in and talks to Five and mentions that the reason the Raza crew in that parallel dimension is different is because they don't have a Five. Kind of saying that kind of she and her innocence is a motivation to them all to be better than they were before. In their
Yeah, and I think it's also we also think that I think 5 is probably dead in the alternate universe as well as 6.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that. I had assumed she just never made it onto the Raza, but that's definitely a possibility. Um, my theory on that Marauder at the end of season 8,
it's alternate 5. No, I'm just kidding.
That's a good theory. I hadn't considered that one. And that Marauder, by the way, is FTL capable. So unlike
which is like that's not our Marauder.
right. I'm actually proposing that it is alternate universe 1, and that's how we get 1 back. Now,
yeah. Ooh, you're right. That's so good. I didn't think about that. I think you're onto something there. Yeah.
Now in the alternate universe, it is the actual Jace Corso that is a member of the Raza. He was never replaced. But I think it's still definitely possible that there is a Moss in that universe who still had himself surgically altered, and maybe Corso showed up on the ship before he could replace him, and he's been on the ship as a stowaway. But to be clearly, he's not, because there were 3 crew. So 2 and 3 came to them to our Raza's crew to meet 4, who was impersonating the Emperor Ashida of their universe, and were captured. So and they were just being returned to the ship when our Raza jumped. So I don't believe it could be 2 and 3. Corso, Tosh, and Wexler, because part of the crew of the Raza in that alternate universe were actually members from the other gang that they were partnered with at the end of season one. Were all tied up in the mess. So I don't think it could be. I don't think the real Jace Corso would have gotten freed onto the shuttle. So it seems like it has to be alternate universe, either one or five, because of course six has been confirmed dead. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. Um, we also got back. What is I keep forgetting her name. I don't know the lady who played Doctor Weir on Stargate Atlantis, reprising her role as a Mikkei senior executive and ship CO. So it was nice having her and the inspector from I think episode 5 who has this kind of I forget what the cop's name is from Les Mis, but is kind of that in the show, where he has a deep respect for Four and his honor, but he still feels bound to hunt him down. We saw him briefly show up, I think, in episode 7 as well. Um, so one of the things do you feel like they're finally getting some good recurring villains and kind of anti-heroes or things in place? Because that was one of my criticisms before from the show, is that like every week it was like a new there was no like singular evil to kind of unify them. It was always like a villain of the week from week to week.
Uh, yeah, I don't really think that there was a villain. Well, the only villain that we saw was the Knicks's old, group. But I didn't really think there was one that was in 7 or 8. So, yeah, I don't know. Oh, I can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I muted myself again. So 7, I felt like the main villain was Renault, right? Um, Although it's unclear whether she'll ever come back. And then yeah, right. In 8, it was like it was just evil versions of characters from like the Prime
Oh yeah, yeah.
universe.
Well, she was the villain, but I think that she's we've known about her, and it's not like she was a new villain. Is what I'm
Right,
trying to get
right.
at.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I feel like they're starting to round out that guest cast of villains to where it seems like from week to week you're gonna see people you've seen before, right? So it sounded like what you said from the trailer for episode 9. It sounds like we're gonna get, is it Rook back, Wesley Crusher, um, and then I'm sure we're gonna get the Four's enemy, who's one of his students that he trained, who came to arrest him in a previous episode. So, so what are your thoughts and theories on what's going on with 2?
Um, why she's honestly the only thing I can think is maybe like she's a robot, and maybe there's like a power cell or something. I don't know that's dying.
No, my thoughts are similar. And again, I don't know if you'll consider it good or bad, but so in Blade Runner, the thing about those androids is they had a shelf life, right? They had a very short lifespan, um, and they would live for a very short period of a very short number of years, and then would die. Um, and so I feel like what they're setting her up for is something similar. Again, I think the show does a lot of like homages to past sci-fi classics, and it would feel very natural from that perspective if what was going on with her was a nod to Blade Runner, in that um, without some type of treatment or injection or medicine or something that she can only survive for like some short number of years.
Yeah, I think that's probably right, and maybe they kind of knew the group when they last captured her that this might be happening. So I think yeah.
You know. So and what are your feelings on the progression of 3? Because I think that's particularly interesting as well.
Um, I don't have any opinion on him right now.
I like the dynamic he's bringing to the show, where he's still kind of this scoundrel, but the amount of space he has where his character is starting to lean towards more good than crazy.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
I kind of like. I don't feel the need for him to remain an asshole, right, for the entire show. I like the idea that he's just going to become like this rough and grumpy um, guy, but who at the end is still a hero.
Yeah.
Very cool. So I think we just because we had 3 episodes to try and cover, and that's definitely impacting how much we remember specifically about each show. Um,
Uh, I don't think there was anything like too controversial, or I mean, it was pretty much yeah. There just wasn't much mystery or anything to discuss. Who was on the Marauder, what happened to Devin, um, seeing the characters. There just wasn't too much of that going on.
right.
I think there's going to be more to 5 coming up, though.
Okay.
I think we're going to see a little bit more of her story because we really don't know more about her story yet, other than she's this smart street kid.
Right. I mean, so here's what's interesting, right? There's what two episodes to go.
Oh, really? I didn't pay attention.
I think it's only a 10 episode season. Hold on, I'm gonna look it up. Um, but we've essentially, we both said like the big thing about this season was that we're getting the reveals of the expanded crew who escaped with them from Hyperion 8, and we've kind of been waiting for each of their stories to unfold, but they've now covered Nyx and Devin, and Devin's not there, so there's really just not there's there's not that content there, right, for them to continue covering as far as revealing more and more backstory. Um, so it'll be interesting to see just where they go for these final 2 episodes. I'm just checking out. Yeah, I guess this one is actually like 15 or 16 episodes. So there's actually
Oh, good. You had me scared. I'm like, wow, this is gonna be a quick wrap up.
yeah, there are 5 episodes to go.
Okay, that sounds more like it. We still have to get to Earth, which I think could be coming up.
Yeah, yeah, that feels like, I think we mentioned before, that feels like not the thing they would do for the season finale, but it would be like the second to last episode or the third to last
Yeah,
episode. And then the finale will be something that we're just not expecting or seeing. Maybe it's the start of the war. Um, Maybe it's something that reveals specifically what they should use the blink drive for. Um, but yeah, it will definitely be interesting, no doubt about that. The show is still pretty strong. It's still, to me, I feel confident that almost every episode will be an 8 or above, except 1 or 2 episodes here and there again, which I'm fine with. So in a finale, I mean, what would you want to see, right? Like in those last 2 episodes of the season,
um,
or
I
at
think
any point in the show.
I think 6 should sacrifice himself nobly. I think I'm just so tired of him now. Honestly, I don't think he's serving any unless they revive the character somehow. But it just seems like you know I don't know, maybe he's too goody two shoes for the group. I don't know.
Well, he was, to me, particularly when once one was gone, or when one was there, he feels like he's the heart of the crew, right, or the conscious, right. He's the one who talks them through like what they shouldn't do, and when they're taking things too far.
And I honestly think maybe a shocker will be we're gonna find out who the second betrayer is. I think that's gonna come,
Okay.
and I don't know who it's going to be yet, and I don't know if it's I think it would be too obvious if they made it 6 again.
Right.
Maybe Marcus because of his personality.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe Ishida, some way to get back. Maybe he'll cut a deal. I don't know, or maybe it'll be something shocker. Maybe 5 does it for who knows what.
Right. Well, so in episode 8, there was this whole scene, because it's 4 who's back on the space station or whatever with or the original Raza with the alternate universe 2 and 3, and and 2 says to him, their version of Ishida is ruthless, right? He has friends and he has a sense of honor and he has loyalties, but he will crush, any inkling of resistance against him. And 2 challenges him and asks him, what's holding you back? Our Ishida would was willing to do whatever was necessary. Um, and so yeah, I can see him in an effort to get his throne back, selling them down the river, at least temporarily, and then of course, I'm sure shows up to rescue them and right is wrong, in season 3. But yeah, I'm with you. I think the most likely other betrayer is probably 4. All right, man. Anything else you want to cover on this episode?
That's it. I'm kind of tired, and I think you are too.
Yeah,
Sorry to everybody, but it's been a long week.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But we felt giving you an episode where we were a bit exhausted would be better than no episode at all. So, all right, man. Well, thanks so much for joining in. If people want to catch up with you and follow your stuff, where can they find you?
Comic Book Guy 90 on Twitter.
Okay, very cool. And as always, of course, I am Agasically Stamus on Twitter. That's one word, 2 S's in the middle. Thanks so much for joining in to this special episode of Scene and Nerd in our What You Can't See series. And we are out of here.